Hey guys, this is Hetu and welcome back to etlqalabs. So in this video, we are going to look at top 5 interview questions on ETL testing. And these questions, I have collated it from the various comment section that you have actually posted on the YouTube channel, right? And I thought that I will collate all of them and then it will really make sense to do this video. And I hope that these questions personally I feel are very good question, right? So you must be knowing all these questions, all right? So do watch this video until end, otherwise kind of you will be missing out on this important question, right? So that's the thing, right? So let's start then. The first question is, what is the purpose of data transformation validation and how to perform this validation in ETL, right? So two questions basically. First of all, they want to understand whether you understand what is data transformation validation, right? So first of all, data transformation, right? So we know in ETL we have the ETL, right? So uh, T's meaning is basically the transformation, right? Extract, transform, and load. So basically, that particular transformation that we are talking, how do we actually test that or validate that? This is basically question around that, right? So data transformation validation is basically performed to ensure that all the transformation that we have done, it's basically following all the business requirements and business logic, right? Okay, so we will look at all of this in much detail, right? So there are various steps how basically we can perform the data transformation validation, right? Are basically the testing, how do we do it, right? So the first and very foremost important thing is basically the data mapping document, right? Or the mapping document that we call, right, data lineage document. It is very important that we understand each and every transformation rule defined in the mapping document. Otherwise, you will not be able to test it, right? You will be doing it wrong way, right? So that's the reason you need to understand each and every transformation first of all, right? And then take each of this transformation and write a SQL query, right? If we have source and target, either of this, right? Are mostly the target system. If we have the database or the relational database, then write a SQL query basically, uh, and then you can basically validate between source and target, right? This is the way you can do it, right? I have taken one simple example, what kind of transformation it could be. Like, let's say source is having two columns in my database, salary and commission, and my target, I just want a single column which is called total salary, and the total salary should be basically sum of salary plus commission, right? So this is one of the transformation, right? And for this, we have to write a SQL query to validate it, correct? So another way is to do the validation. I mean, the first way basically we have the involvement of database, then we should actually go for SQL query, right? Third way you can do it basically take some sample data. Okay, if you can't actually run the whole kind of query SQL queries between source and target, then you should go for the sample data, right? So take some sample data from the target and try to see whether your transformation is actually fitting to that, right? So it's not mandatory that you do the whole population of the data from the target, but actually you can do some sample data and then test it and see that whether it is working, right? Now the last one is very effective, right? That is the automated testing solution, right? So basically, irrespective of whether the source is SQL or source is data or the target, I mean any kind of things, right? We can actually do this particular testing, transformation testing, with the help of automated testing solution, right? I mean, you can write your own scripting in Python, or maybe you can write in any other scripting language that you like, right? So this is the thing that you can do it. You can even use the ETL tools like Informatica and all to basically write a testing solution, right? Automated testing tool, right? So this is about that, right? And now let's go to the next question, right? So these are the basically different things how you can achieve the data transformation testing, right? Now, second question is, what is the data reconciliation, right? And how do we perform it in ETL testing, right? So reconciliation, basically meaning that basically matching, right? Matching the data between two things, right? That is basically general meaning of reconciliation, right? So let's look at what it means, right? So data reconciliation in ETL testing is the process of validating the data in the source and target, right? Whether the transform data is actually consistent and accurate after the data loaded into target, right? Because there are a lot of transformation it is happening between source and target, right? Between that, so we have to ensure that data is matching, right? The reconciliation. Now, how do we achieve this particular reconciliation, right? So what are the different way that we can do it, right? So first thing is basically row count compare, right? You can basically compare the number of record between source and target. This is the one way, right? That will tell you that you have the all the records which were expected to be transferred are transformed and loaded into target. Those are actually done, right? Second thing is the data comparison itself, right? So you can basically take the actual data, actual column data between source and target, and you can compare whether the data is matching or not, right? To give an example of this, right? So let's say you have a name, let's say Pankaj, right? And in my target, if somehow I'm missing the last character, right? Pankaj, in Pankaj, J is missing. In that case, the count will be actually same, right? Count will come exactly same, but the data comparison will be failing here because we are actually checking the values, right, between source and target. So that's the reason data comparison is very important, right? And then checksum, right? This is the third way. Uh, Basically, use of the checksum or the hash function to generate a unique identifier between source and target, and that will basically detect any potential anomalies or discrepancies, right? And the last thing that I said is again automated testing solution. You can write for any kind of test, right? If you are good in writing scripting, right? Or you have the good programming language knowledge, you can actually write your own customized testing tool, right? And that can actually be customized based on what you need, right? So that is the last solution that you can use for your testing purpose, right? Now, let's go to the next question. Next question say, what are the key challenges in ETL testing, right? So we have looked at multiple challenges, right? In the MCQ series also recently, I have covered this kind of question, right? The same question, like what is the key challenge, right? So we have covered only single kind of answer there, but here there are couple more basically. So if somebody is asking what are the key challenges in ETL testing, then you can basically go with the first one, which is the large volume of data, right? And the data is such a large volume that there is a issue with the performance, right? Performance, like performance when I talk, like let's say your source is actually having the billions of record and loading into target takes a lot of time, right? Sometime you might miss the SLA to load in the ETL kind of data warehouse, right? So that is the one of the challenge basically, right? So we need to basically look at how we can optimize the performance of this entire ETL process, right? First thing. Second thing is the data security and compliance, right? Because we get the data from multiple sources, and a lot of them, those sources could have the regulatory requirement, right? Like you cannot see the sensitive data, right? For example, credit card details and all of these things, right? I mean, if you're working in a bank, then you might have potentially access to certain data which you're not supposed to basically deal with, right? And that could be one of the challenge basically, right? Because you cannot get the masking done, and then that is one of the challenge. So second thing, right? And the third thing is the test data in environment management, right? Like like you have to basically make sure that for each and every job you need a specific set of data, right? Test data, and sometimes the environments as well, right? Because like you are doing a lot of things, and then um, your testing environment may not be available for testing, right? So that's another challenge, right? And then some of the challenge which are, I would say, they are not a great challenges, but I would say they were worth considering, right? So testing complex transformation logic and validation. So this is basically something based on your skills, right? Like sometimes really very complex logics will be there, and automating them will not be possible, right? And in that case, we go for the sampling testing, sample testing, right? So, and then the last one, basically a lot of data quality issue, right? So data quality issue is another challenge in ETL testing, right? Like how you will test the data, because let's say you want something in target, but in source itself, the data is missing, right? How do you transform that? Or there is some issue with the duplication or some data format like DDMMY and MMDDY from two different system in the source for the date format, right? That could be also a problem, right? So these are the several challenges, right? And it's worth mentioning that in interview if they are asking, right? And this will give you very, very good kind of reputation in front, like impression in front of the interviewer, right? Now let's look at the next question, which is basically what is the ETL? What is ETL testing? How basically? How is ETL testing different than the database testing, right? So many times you might have heard like database testing, we need this engineer and that engineer, right? What exactly ETL tester does and what exactly database testing engineer does, right? In this video, in this question, we will look at that, right? So ETL testing basically focuses on what? They focus on data accuracy, data completeness check, data transformation logic, and data performance, like the performance of the overall ETL process, basically, right? So this is this is basically the few things that we actually is the prime potential or prime importance, right, for the ETL testing. And for the database testing, basically we don't go for this data accuracy, completeness and all. Basically we go for a different kind of testing, and which are basically mostly dealing with the database functions, right? Mostly we're dealing with the testing those database function. For example, you can test the views are working fine, whether stored procedure or triggers are working fine. I mean, they are actually uh, working fine in a different environment, testing environment, right? Data integrity, constant, and then performance, obviously, right? The database, some stored procedure you have written, it should be basically able to complete its work given any amount of data in a very, very optimal fashion, right? So that is the basically the focus for the database testing. So hope you are able to understand what is the difference between ETL and database testing, right? Now let's look at the next question, and I think this is the last question as well. What are the best practices that your project follows? I mean, this is a very, very popular question, guys. I will tell you, right? That's why I was telling, watch the video until end, right? This is the best kind of I mean, this is the important question, and the best practices that you follow, they might ask you, right? So they want to understand, like you are working in a project, then you obviously know that what are the best practices that you follow, right? So first of all, understanding the requirement, right? Understanding the requirement is really a best practice. Without understanding the requirement, if you're writing some test cases or you are testing some system, it is going to be not a bug free, right? You are going to make a lot of mistakes, and that bug is going to be actually going to the next stage, right? And that is the thing, we need to understand each and every detail. Any ambiguity in the requirement need to clarify it with the BA or whoever is responsible for that requirement. We need to understand that and make sure you have the crystal clear understanding what exactly you want to test, right? Otherwise, you can just assume that, okay, this will happen like this. No, never assume the things, right? You get the requirements sorted first, okay? Second, second best practice that we should follow in the project is basically that the testing environment should be basically should be like a production like environment, right? Why it should be production like environment? Because in production we have the huge amount of data, right? First thing, so you can actually test the performance testing there, right? So if you have the that amount of data, so test environment should be actually something replica, I mean very near to kind of production environment in terms of hardware, software and everything, right? So that that will not give you surprises when your application, when you are actually promoting your jobs into or your application into production environment, right? Because you already tested such a big volume of data and I mean hardware and other supporting factors, right? Now, the third best practice is test data to cover realistic scenario and edge cases, right? So your test data should cater all the different edge cases, right? And it should be having the realistic scenario. Your test data should not be very simple enough just to cover, you know, few things and not covering everything, right? So for each and every data transformation, right, there will be different transformation rule. So you have to make sure looking at the transformation, your test data should be prepared, right? So that you can test all those transformation. Okay. Now, test automation is another kind of best practice, because you would like to have your automation testing. I know that not 100% can be achieved, but you can at least achieve 50-60% automation of your ETL process. That is very, very, very good enough, right? I mean, it is not a web testing, or it's not kind of other automation testing. It is ETL testing. So like 50-60% coverage is very, very good basically, right? So at least 50% of testing can be done on a click, right? So that's the reason test automation to reduce the test cycle and improve efficiency. Okay. Now the next best practice is clear documentation for future reference, right? So you and your team should make sure that you are putting the clear documentation, right? So you are writing some script, you have to put in the documentation that you have put this script here on this GitLab in this repository, and this is the version, etc. Everything should be documented properly, right? At least the bare minimum documentation should be there. Otherwise, if new team members are joining, it is very difficult for them, or the person who is actually leaving the company, they will carry the knowledge with them actually, and then company is at loss, right? So that is the thing. We should have the clear documentation for the future reference. And the last one is basically use of the GitHub repository to maintain. So if you're writing a lot of scripts in your project, right, like to validate multiple things, your automation scripts, right? So all of them basically you need to keep in the GitHub repository. That is basically version control system, right? Why? Because you can't keep it, locally on some system or on other system, right? Because this is a code, proper code, right? And to maintain the code, there is no other place better than Git repository, right? Which is the VSS, right? So you should be actually making sure that you maintain this best practice to use the Git repository for all your auto test automation scripts. Okay. All right, guys. I think this brings us to the end of the question, right? So these are five top important question. I think these are the very, very good question, and I loved making this video, and I hope that it is really helpful for you. And if you are visiting first time on this channel, I bring amazing content on this channel. All right, so please do consider to subscribe this channel, share with your friends, and don't forget to hit the bell notification for the upcoming videos, guys. All right, and that's all for this video. I'll see you soon with the next video. Until then, happy learning. God bless you. Bye.